On this episode, we talk about the effectiveness of the new 240 choline technology, insect pressure in corn, and the demand for Enlist E3 soybeans for the 2021 crop season.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Welcome to Cup of Joe, episode number 47, season 2. Today, we got everybody back in their chairs. We got Ben and Turk and Tommy, and it's been a real interesting week because, right now, soybeans are growing, and when soybeans and corn are growing, guess what? We run into sometimes some questions, right? Ben, you've been out in the field. Take it away.
So the first thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was as all these post applications of Enlist 1 and Enlist Duo are starting to happen, we've been getting a lot of calls on, my beans look droopy, what happened? Are you sure these are 2,4-D resistant? Mm-hmm. Well, when the heat and humidity added together is at 140, when you take your humidity, let's say it's 80 degrees outside with 80-degree humidity or 80% humidity, those two together would be 160. So you're over that threshold. We're more likely to see these beans curl up and look like they're not 2,4-D resistant, but that's just simply not the case.
We saw this a little bit last year too.
Yep, on one or two occasions. Yep. But yes, last year we didn't have near as many days in the 90s like what we're seeing this year so far. So it's definitely exacerbated some of these symptomologies of what we're seeing. So just realize that 12 to 24 hours, those beans are going to knock it off, and they're going to roll back up and look like they're...
Are they dropping their leaves flat like this instead of being upright, or exactly what do they look like?
They look like they're going to sleep and leaning over.
Yep, they look like a dandelion. They kind of curl and they roll down. And what's happening is that beans are growing extremely fast. There's lots of cell division happening, and with lots of heat and humidity, because that's what beans really like. 2,4-D is an auxin, and auxins cause cell expansion and cell division to happen so quickly it eventually kills the plant. So you're like double dosing it when you have those conditions and that kind of heat. It's the beans just eventually you're putting two different things happening at the same time to make the beans kind of curl up and lay down. And like I said, in 12 to 24 hours, the beans will pop back up. Especially if you get a rain event. We're kind of dry right now. It'll help those beans pop back out of that symptomology.
Well, I know last year in a situation we had the agronomist for the grower actually stop the sprayer because he thought the beans were dying, and then we were on the field literally 18 hours later, and he thought it was a completely different field. Right. He just couldn't believe it. Yeah, how much they turned back around and everything.
It happens that quickly.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to inform everybody on that. We're going to see a lot of that this year, I think, just because of the heat that we have and the forecast that we're looking at in the future. I also wanted to add, for guys that are trying to clean up their volunteer corn, 2,4-D and dicamba are both antagonists when it comes to the FOPs and DIMs that we use. So that's two different classes of volunteer corn chemistry. So
mention some names if you're not familiar with
FOPs
and DIMs.
Fusilade, Clethodim, Select Max, it would be in that. Assure 2, those are Post. That'd be another good one. Those are products that we use to clean up volunteer corn. So we ask that you increase your rate by 50%. So a lot of that stuff is 6 to 9 ounces, what you usually use. So kind of bump it up, throw another 3 or 4 ounces in, and you're going to get a good kill on your volunteer corn.
That's both on the 2,4-D choline and also on the
Extendamax.
Extendamax, okay.
Yep. So those are both antagonists. That's really important, so you don't have to come back in and do a different post application to get your volunteer corn cleaned up.
One.
Yep. Absolutely. The other thing that we kind of wanted to touch on was we've been getting phone calls about, why do my beans look like this? I sprayed 2,4-D and they're kind of they're burnt looking, like you'd be spraying Cobra or a PPO or like spraying a PPO on stuff. They're like, well, what happened? I said, well, what products were you using? Well, turns out there's a couple growers out there that aren't following labels, and if you are using LV4, if you're using the wrong Enlist product, the surfactants in those products that they have to use to keep them less volatile are actually burning the beans.
You should say the non-labeled product.
Non-labeled products, you can definitely tell every time that a non-labeled product is being used on 2,4-D. So
from the road you can tell pretty well.
So in other words, if you're using just generic 2,4-D rather than the Enlist 1 or the Enlist Dual, you're you're not only going to see some burn, but you're also going to smell it, right?
Right.
In other words, if you're doing an illegal application of these generic 2,4-Ds over post on your Enlist soybeans, your neighbors are going to know by the smell. I mean,
Right.
the smell is very pugnact with common 2,4-D.
Right. So we just really encourage guys to do the right thing, use the right labeled products, because you're not gonna help yourself in the end, because you're dinging your beans back. You're holding them back a couple steps
To save pennies.
You're right. Exactly. So we really don't ever want to see beans being stunted or pulled back. So do the right thing, use the right products. And we also had a neighbor in our sales territory here that was trying to clean up a fence row, and he was spraying Enlist, and
But we actually have pictures we can show them.
Yep.
They took the fence out, and so they had on the left-hand side was the Enlist E3, on the right-hand side was Extend, and the farmer who applied the Enlist 1 or Enlist Dual, in other words the 2,4-D, he decided to slide over a little bit and take out some of the horse weeds that were in that bare spot, which is the buffer area between the two farms. And we got a picture of that, and you can see exactly what happens when you put 2,4-D on Extend soybeans. You can see the one row got a direct shot, and you can see exactly what's happened. But what's interesting, I actually went out and took that picture, is that 2,4-D and soybeans are fairly tolerant to 2,4-D. They can take a pretty good shot at 2,4-D. The other thing is 2,4-D is contact. So the leaves that he hit definitely got hurt, but the next leaves that are coming out are nice. They're going to be fine. And what's really interesting, on the next picture, I have a ragweed that he was trying to kill next to the soybeans. The ragweed was a big, pretty tall ragweed. It smoked, but the soybeans are coming out of it.
right.
So now, if it had been the other way around, if the Extend farmer had sprayed dicamba onto the 2,4-D beans, he would have killed them.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, like Aaron Hager says, he checked over 3,000 plants in the state of Illinois. He's a weed scientist from Illinois. And soybeans are the most susceptible to dicamba of any plant out there. And also, dicamba is systemic. So, in other words, if he just got a whiff of it, every new leaf coming out would still show the damage for many days. I mean, for over 30 days usually, isn't it?
Right.
One of my main takeaways from that picture, Joe, was there used to be 4-foot horseweed in that fence row, and now it's bare ground. And then the second spot was it just stayed on the one row where it physically touched. It didn't move across the field or
Keep in mind,
You
there's
didn't
a
go to the
6
next
mile an
row.
hour.
there was no volatility, so to speak.
Yeah, no physical. We got one row, and the next row next to it is fine. So in other words, 2,4-D stays home. I mean, it doesn't lift up and go away.
That was a real world scenario where the
Yep.
product worked. I mean, that was
Right.
a feather in the cap that it works
Right.
the right
Keep
way.
in mind that there's a 6 mile an hour wind blowing towards the
The Extend
field.
beans.
Yep.
So the wind was blowing towards.
The Extend beans, which is a labeled application.
You're
I mean,
right.
that you're following the label correctly, and if that would have been the opposite direction, that entire field would have had dicamba symptomology on it. So
Yeah, and the farmer at this point has not applied his dicamba yet, so we'll have to stay tuned to watch the rest of that, how it turns out. But we'll come back in a couple weeks and take the same photos again to show you what those soybeans look like. The Extend soybeans, I got a direct hit of 2,4-D, just to show you how they respond. And then if it turns out the other way, we'll show you what happens the other way. So interesting, but understanding these products really helps you manage it. But the 2,4-D choline and is a very good product. It's a very good product, and we're not seeing it move around. And another little tidbit: a tomato plant and grapes and cotton are extremely sensitive to 2,4-D. So if you have those in the neighborhood, you want to be very, very careful, because they are as sensitive as what soybeans are to dicamba. So keep that in mind.
Especially people that are using the off-label products, especially. So
Yeah, because they're not designed
To stay like
There,
they're
there are
supposed
those are susceptible plants, and you have to do your buffer and border, which is what, 30 feet, and you got to have the wind blowing
The opposite
away
direction.
from opposite direction to spray
Yeah.
the 2,4-D choline.
It just really nails home how neighbor friendly the product is, and how much we've all talked about, and I'm really happy that we're on this side of the fence and the product's working really well.
No pun intended.
The fence is not there anymore.
Exactly.
Turk?
I just got a couple things. I started noticing lightning bugs this week. Probably a lot of people have. It's definitely related to the growing degree units, and just so happens the lightning bugs and rootworm larvae have the same growing degree days, and so there's 17% of the nation's corn crop is now non-GMO corn. So we kind of have to go back and start remembering how we used to do it. If we're going to be planting non-GMO corn, you have to be scouting a little bit and see what's going on. But
So Turk, when you see lightning bugs, that means the rootworms are hatching and starting to eat on your
on the roots
of
on
the corn if you don't have protected
if
corn.
you have non-GMO corn, that's right. So
it's not
only if you have rootworm eggs out there.
That's right.
From before. So again, you have to be looking and scouting all the time, and so we talk about scouting for rootworm beetles when we have silking on the corn, and seeing what your beetle counts are, and then you kind of know where you're going to be for the following year.
You can put traps out, right?
You can put traps out.
You can put them in your soybean fields to see
if you have extended diapause, or no, that's extended diapause is where the rootworms actually lay eggs in bean fields, and then they're there for the next year when you plant your corn. So that you can put those traps out, and that kind of predicts that. You can put it on cornfield too, but it's a whole lot tougher to do scout cornfields with traps. So, but it can be done. It definitely can be done.
So let's walk through the ways that we walk us through the root dig. Well, what's the most effective way to know if you have feeding?
Well, if you're going to be looking for a rootworm larva, the best way to do is to dig up your plant, and probably I would wait just a little while because you got to let them larvae get a little bit bigger. Right now they're about 1/8 of an inch long or 1/4 inch long, and they're a little tough to see. But if you wait for just a little while and you go out there and you dig up a root system, dig out up about a 8-10 inch area around that root, dig it out, set it in a bucket of water, swish it up and down gently a little bit, and get all the soil dissolved in it, and all the rootworm larvae will float. You can see really easy what your situation is, and then you can probably also see the feeding that's already started as well. So again, old school, old timer, the way we used to do things, but right now most people are managing with some type of rootworm control or doing scouting, and whether it be a trait or an insecticide of some kind. But kind of going back to the way we used to do things with all the non-GMO corn that's being planted.
So corn on corn is more than likely where you're going to have rootworms as a general rule.
More than likely, unless you have the extended or the soybean variant in the field, extended diapause. So it's definitely one of those deals where we have to be mindful. The other one is same thing with corn borer. Corn borers, same thing. If you're planting non-GM or a conventional corn, we kind of got to go remember the life cycle of the corn borer and the scouting and the corn borers right now that are out there in the field and hatching are going to actually bore into that stalk and cause stalk problems later on in the fall. So be scouting. We used to control both critters with practices that we used to do one way or another. So, but corn borer is a whole lot easier to control than rootworm beetle in the field.
Yeah, I remember for years and years ago they used to spray the adult beetle as soon as they saw silking. Shortly after silking, I think they applied an insecticide to kill the adults. If you kill the adults, you don't have youngsters.
That's right. You don't have there are no offspring. So and on the corn borer, again, we used to spray all the time. Timing is critical when you start seeing those larvae crawling around on your leaves. you can go out and spray that time like we used to broadcast. What was the name of the product? No, it was actually a granular that would just fall down
into
and
the
go
world.
into the world. Pounce. Pounce was the product that we used to use, and it would catch in the leaves, fall down right to the base of the plant, and when that larva crawled down there, it got him. So
Pounce right on.
Stop, pounce right on him. Stop from getting in, pouring into the stock and causing stock problems later. So just be mindful if you're planting non-GMO corn, and 19% of the nation's corn crop, 17% of the nation's corn crop last year was non-GMO corn, and I think the number's going up, isn't it, Ben?
Yep. And the thing to be watching out for with the European corn borer is the shotgun blast. So they'll actually bore through the leaves while it's whirled up, and then you'll see what looks like a shotgun blast across those leaves that are coming out of the whorl, and that's telltale. You can tell right away.
But there is one other thing, and it's called the halo effect too. In other words, if all your neighbors are planting resistant corn borer products, in essence, you get some protection in the middle.
Yep, you do get some protection. You won't know the answer to that question until the moths start flying, though, Joe.
I understand.
When the moths start flying, you can definitely tell what fields have protection and which ones don't, because it just kind of goes back and forth as you go drive down the road and hit the moths. So.
Okay. Tommy?
On Thursday, we drove up basically to 80 and down 35 and back over, and we did some scouting. Definitely will say we've seen some yellowing in beans, some droopy beans, kind of what Ben has been talking about. A lot of guys, for guys that think that they have sulfur deficiency or anything like that in their soybeans, what would you say for them, Ben, as far as what we're seeing? I know it's more probably weather related.
If it's not chemical damage or surfactant damage that you're seeing, dig the plants up and look for nodulation, because the beans kind of have an ugly period just like corn does. They're waiting for the nodules to start fixing nitrogen.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty apparent. I mean, we were talking before the show started, you could see a field that has had many years of hog manure or high organic matter, and you can see the splits on some of those because the beans aren't needing nitrogen. Those fields are dark
Everything's
green.
right there. Yep.
Right.
Yep. So we saw a little bit of that, and I think, like Ben said, we got I think a week or two and a week and a half, we're going to really see some differences out in the soybean fields and some new growth here taking place. We definitely saw a lot of dicamba damage up through that region and back around. We've had some warm days. There's been some applications. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but just something to notate that we have been seeing. And then I think we're setting up for a really good sudden death year, to be honest with you. I think that's kind of the consensus across the territory that we traveled, and which will be a good test for our sudden death products versus competitive products. So, and that's about it. A lot of questions about supply issues, but I think we're going to be A-okay as far as that goes, right, Ben?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're starting to get a lot of questions about, I'm not sure what the status is going to be of dicamba next year for post-application. Mm-hmm. So we are getting calls about folks that are asking about the supply of Enlist E3 and LibertyLink GT27s. And Ben knows exactly, because he specifies each variety and selects each variety and determines the acres. So right now things are looking good for our supply. I mean, if folks are anticipating maybe switching traits for next year, and those of customers that have been planting our products, we're going to take care of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, we always take care of our existing customers, and we welcome new customers.
Absolutely.
So
we're also the turn of the equinox is coming up here, which triggers beans to start flowering, and that will have an effect on customers spraying dicamba products too, won't it, Ben?
Yep. So the label for 2,4-D and Roundup lets you take it all the way to up to R3, so you can get all the way through R2.
Which is just a formation of pods, just little bitty quarter-inch long pods, right?
Yep. And
it's R2.
Yep. The Liberty is R1, and the Extend is R1 as well.
So and R1 is the first sign of flower, right?
Correct. So
basically, once you see flowering, technically you can't spray Liberty or
Extend dicamba.
Extend dicamba.
Yep.
Just a couple footnotes there. Well, tomorrow is Father's Day, so I thought I'd bring a story in that kind of relates to Father's Day, for my joke of the day or corny joke, whatever. This one here is a father and his little princess daughter, and they're having a little conversation, So while they're having their evening dinner together, the little girl looked up at her father and asked, "Daddy, you're the boss in the family, right?" And the father, kind of put his chest out a little bit and says, "Father, he was pleased to hear it," and confidently replied, "Yes, my little princess." Then the girl continued, "That's because Mommy put you in charge, right?"
Gave him permission. That's great.
So anyhow, we sincerely appreciate your business, and we hope that you and your family are healthy and safe, and we'll see you next week. Take care.